Call to order the meeting of the Greenwood Common Council on Monday, October the 1st, 2018. In a moment, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll be led by the pledge this evening by some Girl Scouts. So if they would like to come to the front and lead us in the pledge. And after the pledge, we'll be led in prayer this evening by Reverend Peter Zen, pastor of the Greenwood Presbyterian Church. Stand, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, girls.
Great God, we come to you this evening, petitioners and listeners and council and staff and first responders and people who are interested in questioning about our city and its government. We ask you to bring forth justice and truth and compassion this night and help us listen to one another without fear or prejudging, but listen for your voice and your truth in this town. We ask it in the name of Jesus, our Savior. Amen.
Amen. May be seated. For a roll call, we've asked the Girl Scouts to step to the podium, give us their name and troop number and why they're here this evening.
To finish my Good Neighbor badge.
Roll call.
Armstrong.
Here.
Bates.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Foster.
Here.
Gibson. Here. Hill.
Here.
Hopper.
Here.
And Lex.
Here. We have a quorum and would like to welcome our newest council member, Mr. Drew Foster. Good luck. Thanks. All right, y'all should have received copies of our minutes from the last regular meeting of the council from September 17th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bates. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lexi. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Seeing none, roll call on the minutes.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill. Hopper.
Aye.
And Lexi.
Aye.
Minutes are approved on a vote of 9-0. This time we open up the microphone to members of the audience who'd like to address the council concerning anything to do with the city of Greenwood. So if you're here this evening, would like to talk to the council, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, council members. My name is Doug Clark. I live at 3028 Fry Road in the Sable Ridge subdivision, which I'd like to add in this matter is a non-HOA community. I received a letter on on September 26th from an Alan Fruit, building inspector, in regards to a complaint of a violation of parking a car, an operating, fully licensed car, at the side of my home. And it was not on a paved surface. Now, because I've only lived in Greenwood since 2012, I did not have any knowledge of your specific rule, which is 6.20.06, the paved surface requirements, which states that all driveways and parking areas for all uses shall be paved with concrete, asphalt, or other approved surface material. Since this is the first I knew of this, the first thing is I don't know what your approved surface material is. I simply, for a number of reasons, cannot afford to pave the area where I'd like to park this car in. And because of an anonymous complaint, I received this letter from Mr. Crew stating that I would have to remove the car from the side of my property and back onto either the driveway or the street. Now, on my street, which is Fry Road in the Sable Ridge subdivision, it is a very narrow street. There is parking on the street. However, if I were to park a vehicle on the street, it would interfere with the traffic flow both east and west on Fry Road to the extent that a car would have to pass in the opposite lane just to pass my parked car. And also because of the recent rash of break-ins and burglaries of automobiles in the adjoining areas, I chose to park my car at the side of the house to, number one, keep it out of the way of people who need both lanes of Fry Road for traffic, and number two, to keep it safe or safer from these incidents where cars are broken into and belongings stolen. In Mr. Crute's letter, he writes specifically that, and I assume this is his interpretation of the ordinance, that no parking or driving on the yard or grass is allowed, only to drive, park on driveways. That is not specifically stated in your ordinance, although it does cover the fact that driveways and parking areas shall be used for that purpose with a concrete, asphalt, or other approved material. It seems to me that because I've known and seen a lot of areas in this town where there are older houses and a lot of them still have old stone driveways, a lot of those driveways have grass growing up to the point where you can't really tell there was a subsurface on it. So, in his ruling, does that mean those folks are driving on the grass? So I would ask the council to consider restating the ordinance so that in an area which is not governed by an HOA and their covenants, that there would be exemptions made for operating, driving automobiles.
All right, thank you. Anyone Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time? See, now we move on to reports. Corporation Counsel.
You all should have received the semi-monthly item report and the litigation report, and if you have questions about either, please contact me.
Anything from the controller?
Nothing.
Any other committee or board reports? I think you all should have received a copy of my report from the last special council or RDC meeting. It was short, so if you have any questions, let me know.
Mr. President, we did have a plan commission meeting a week ago. Under old business, the commission did turn down a request for changing commitments on Easy Street condos. Under new business, they approved a primary plat for shops at Library Park, also a primary plat at Greenwood Park at 65 South, and also a primary plot for the Goodwill industry. And then there is a request for a zone change, map change, to Public Property Company, which has been continued to the October 22nd meeting.
All right. Any other committee or board reports? Seeing none. Ordinances and resolutions.
Mr. President, we've been requested to move Nestle Waters up to the top of our agenda.
That'd be ordinance 1833.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion to move ordinance 1833 to the front. That was second by Mr. Bates. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, ordinance 1833 has been moved to the front, so we'll start with ordinance 1833.
An ordinance vacating a portion of platted no access easement Nestle Waters North America Inc. for GPT Greenwood Owner LLC located at 900 Commerce Parkway West Drive, sponsored by Campbell.
This is a second reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gibson, second.
So moved.
Second by Mr. Lexi. Any discussion on ordinance 1833? All right, seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 18. It is scheduled for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against ordinance 1833, please step to the podium. State your name and address for the record. Seeing none, close the public hearing. Any further discussion, ordinance 1833?
I've got this bottle in my hand. This might be the best free advertising we ever did. It says the source of the water is Greenwood, Indiana. I feel kind of foolish for paying for this.
Quadruple filter.
They have been a good corporate neighbor, so.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, ordinance 1833, second reading.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
and Lexi.
All right.
Ordinance 1833 passes second reading on a vote of 9-0. All right, back to the scheduled agenda. First reading, ordinance 1824.
An ordinance for appropriations and tax rates for the 2019 budget year, sponsored by Bates.
We already have a motion on the floor, and we opened up a public hearing. We continued the public hearing until this evening. So anyone here this evening wishing to speak for or against ordinance 1824, please step to the podium, state your name and address for the record. This may be the longest public hearing we've ever had, but seeing no one, then we'll close the public hearing on ordinance 1824. Just for the record, Mr. Bates made the motion on first reading. Ms. Gibson seconded that. Any discussion on ordinance 1824? Seeing none, roll call, first reading, ordinance 1824.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill, Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
All right.
and Armstrong.
Nay.
Ordinance 1824 passes first reading on a vote of 8-1. Ordinance 1835.
An ordinance approving non-exclusive use agreement with MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corp. for fiber optic systems, sponsored by Bates and Gibson.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gibson, second. Second by Mr. Hill. Any discussion? Ordinance 1835.
Is there something in there that allows us to trigger a do not continue option?
Yeah, if you look in the license group, the Board of Works and Safety has, abilities to revoke their out of compliance with their agreement, and also anytime they want to put facilities in the public rights of way, they have to go and show them what they're going to put in and get approval.
Okay. I know that when we had the last time this happened, we had issues, and I just wanted to make sure there was a mechanism to stop them at any time.
And did we as a council issue that?
I don't know whether it was
I
us.
think we discussed it, but I believe that was the mayor's prerogative on that. All right, any other discussion? Ordinance 1835. Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1835, first reading.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill. Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
And Bates.
Aye.
Ordinance 1835 passes first reading 9-0. Second reading, ordinance 1823.
An ordinance fixing salaries of appointed officers and employees of the city of Greenwood, Indiana, and city utilities for the year 2019, sponsored by Bates.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bates. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Gibson. Any discussion? Ordinance 1823.
I'll reiterate what I said the last time, that I acknowledge the outstanding job that all of our city employees do, but I also recognize the fact that a lot of our taxpayers, many of whom still may be at work or whatever, are not at this meeting. And the tough question is always, where do you draw the line? So these are 5% across the board increases for every employee in the city. And I don't know anybody at the private level who's getting 5% raises lately. And I thought that 3% would be an appropriate cost of living adjustment. And at the last meeting I said I would meet in the middle and go for 4%. And that wasn't popular, so I have to vote against 5.
Right. Any other discussion, comments, ordinance 1823? Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1823, second reading.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill.
Nay.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Nay.
Armstrong.
Nay.
Bates.
Aye.
And Campbell.
Aye. Ordinance 1823 passes second reading on a vote of 6-3. Ordinance 1826.
An ordinance amending Greenwood Municipal Code 1993, Chapter 2, Article 8, Section 274, maternity leave benefit, sponsored by Gibson.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Gibson, second by Mr. Bates. Any discussion? Ordinance 1826. Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1826, second reading.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill. Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Be safe out there.
Armstrong.
Jungle.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
And Dine.
Aye.
Ordinance 1826 passes second reading 9-0. Ordinance 1827.
An ordinance amending the 2018 salary ordinance, Common Council Ordinance Number 1745, to change the classification status of the building services supervisor and regarding payment of the city attorney, sponsored by Gibson.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gibson, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hopper. Any discussion? Ordinance 1827. Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1827, second reading.
Gibson.
Aye.
Hill. Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Nay.
Armstrong.
Nay.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Ordinance 1827 passes second reading 7-2. Ordinance 1828.
An ordinance amending Greenwood Municipal Code 1993 as amended Chapter 2, Article 8, Section 268 to provide for an additional one-day paid holiday for Independence Day for the year 2019, sponsored by Bates and Campbell.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bates, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lexi. Any discussion? Ordinance 1828. Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1828, second reading.
Hill. Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Stein.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
And Gibson. Aye.
Ordinance 1828 passes second reading 9-0. Ordinance 1829.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the mayor of the city of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2019, sponsored by Bates.
Do I have a motion?
Second. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Dine. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Foster. Any discussion? Ordinance 1829.
I think we passed two, and we're gonna pass a third, ordinance benefiting the employees of the city of Greenwood. Those are well deserved, and that's a pretty good deal for them.
All right, any other discussion? Ordinance 1829. Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1829.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Nay.
Bates.
Aye.
I misspoke, Madam Clerk, I'm a nay.
Campbell.
Aye.
Stein.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson. And
Ordinance 1829 passes second reading 7-2. Ordinance 1830.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the clerk of the city of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2019, sponsored by Bates.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second by, did I hear Mr. Foster, was that? I think
Sure.
Is that,
Second.
okay, second by Mr. Foster. Any discussion? Ordinance 1830.
I have something, please.
Oh my.
Could I change mine to 3%?
Too late.
Too late to decrease?
Request was too late.
I move
I'll
to
get
amend it.
comparisons. And
We have
I move to amend it 3
3%.
by dividing the number on the ordinance by 1.05 and multiplying the result by 1.03.
Whatever you say.
We have a motion by Mr. Lexi to amend ordinance 1830 and to reduce it from a 5% increase to 3% increase. Do I have a second? A second by Mr. Armstrong. Any discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, roll call on motion to amend ordinance 1830.
Lexi.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Nay.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill. And Hopper.
As you wish.
All right, ordinance 1830 is amended 8-1. Any further discussion on ordinance 1830 as amended? Seeing none, roll call. Ordinance 1830, second reading as amended.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Bates.
Nay.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill. Hopper.
Aye.
And Lexi.
Aye.
Ordinance 1830 is passed 8-1 as amended. Ordinance 1831.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the city judge of the city of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2019, sponsored by Bates.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hopper, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bates. Any discussion? Ordinance 1831. Seeing none, roll call, second reading, ordinance 1831.
Bates.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Dine.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gibson. Aye. Hill.
Aye.
Hopper.
Aye.
Lexi.
Nay.
And Armstrong.
Nay.
Ordinance 1831 passes second reading 7-2. Ordinance 1832.
An ordinance fixing the salary of the common Council of the City of Greenwood, Indiana for the year 2019, sponsored by Bates.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hopper. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Foster. Any discussion? Ordinance 1832.
So this is a 2% raise for us sitting up here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Second reading, ordinance 1832.
Campbell,
Aye.
Dine,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill, Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Nay.
Armstrong,
Nay.
and Bates.
Aye.
Ordinance 1832 passes second reading 6-3. Resolution 1823.
A resolution establishing holidays for employees of the City of Greenwood for the year 2019, sponsored by Bates and Campbell.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Gibson, second by Mr. Dine. Any discussion? Resolution 1823.
This is the third one I was thinking of when I accidentally said yes. This is a good ordinance. Well deserved.
All right. Any other discussion? Ordinance or resolution 1823. Seeing none, roll call. Second reading, resolution 1823.
Foster,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Hopper,
Aye.
Lexi,
Alright,
Armstrong,
Aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
and Dine.
Aye.
Ordinance 1823 passes second reading 9-0. New business, introduction, new ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance 1836.
An ordinance amending Greenwood Municipal Code 1993 as amended Chapter 7, Building and Construction Regulations, Article 3, Miscellaneous Regulations, Section 745, Excavation Permit Required, and Section 746, Maintenance of Excavations, as well as providing penalties for violation of such ordinance, sponsored by Gibson.
All right, anybody want to talk about this one?
I can.
Okay.
We needed to update the excavation permit requirements and regulations. Some of the bonding requirements were out of date, and some of the requirements like if there were emergencies, contact information. So we went through and had several meetings with departments that were mostly affected, and this is the result. The amounts were very small that you used to have to post, and it wasn't really enough to make repairs in the event that utilities and contractors didn't go back out and fix things if you had to draw on the bond. And then of course there wasn't a requirement that you had emergency situations where you would call in and have a number where you could notify, so the city would know somebody had to go out and make an emergency cut somewhere.
Do you know how they decided to come to a final amount? Like, we're gonna increase it this percentage?
Sergey actually had meetings with the different departments. He might be able to answer that for you.
Good evening. Yes, we have looked at several jurisdictions around the state of Indiana, including Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, and similar municipalities, both similar population as well as Greenwood. And this number is a little bit smaller than the highest and a little bit higher than the average. So this is how we came up with the numbers.
Yes.
I have a question, and this may be the wrong ordinance at the wrong time, but whenever they're cutting into the road or doing construction, blocking the road, they never call the police or fire department to let them know that the road is going to be blocked or partially blocked, nor do they provide a flagman to get traffic through there, and we get numerous calls that the traffic's backed up, that it's dangerous. Is any of that been?
Yes, that's actually was a big reason for the ordinance, because the previous ordinance that we had in our code does not address any emergency situations like this. So this ordinance specifically lists requirements for every single cut, every single excavation, or every single disturbance in our right-of-ways. It provides a number, which now it's a designated emergency number, to call to list all this information, so we know when the emergency occurred, what type of emergency that is, what will be required to fix it, what time it will take, who is hired to fix it, etc. So it's all very much listed out in that emergency proceedings.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
No, I would like to add, just a comment, not a question, but, we talked about, let's just say, MetroNet earlier and all the problems that we had with them a couple of years ago. But we recently, in my neighborhood or neck of the woods, have experienced problems with the AT&T people and Comcast people who are also laying new lines. So it's a common problem. I suspect it might be because the right-of-ways are so filled with different things, Ezra. They only have so much room, right? And we've got 4 or 5 different providers that are putting.
Yeah, there's like no room at all.
and I've heard accusations that now some of the people are outside of the right-of-way. Instead of worrying about where everybody else is under the ground, they're just kind of taking a foot on either side and going outside of it. So this is important.
I can address this as well a little bit. The communication providers considered utilities under state law, so they are included under the ordinance, and there is a provision for restoration as well, which has been greatly increased. And part of the area that has to be restored is not only the area in the right-of-way itself, but also the area surrounding it. So we're very well aware of that. This is.
Thank you very much. I was very happy to see this draft order.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions or comments? Yes.
Mr. President, Lisa, I'm going to put you on the spot, but do you try to keep a log of the various incidents so that we have one set spot that we can go to and know how many issues we've had with different companies?
I do.
Okay, and I don't know if the other council members know that or not, but if you get a complaint, if you will also forward that to Lisa, it helps us to keep an overall list and know how extensive that is.
Okay.
Lisa Edwards.
Yes.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you. Resolution 1824.
A resolution of the Greenwood Common Council to adopt a written fiscal plan for the annexation of approximately 100 acres located north of Tracy Road between Honey Creek Road and County Road 125 West, referencing annexation ordinance number 1837, sponsored by Bates.
This
is just a fiscal plan we put together for a 100-acre annexation that's pending. It'll be heard by the Plan Commission a week from today, and then forwarded to you a week after. We have a census coming up, 2020, and annexation is prohibited during the year preceding a census. So we didn't think we were going to get an annexation, but basically we got an annexation that was filed right when they could maybe make it to the end of the year. But if they can't get this done before the end of the year, then they have to wait till 2020 to actually make it effective for you all. So the time frame we have right now has it set. We can record it on December 28th, but we need to hit all the wickets almost perfectly to do that. And so one of the things we had to do was get the fiscal plan to you in resolution form before you see the annexation, which is kind of odd, but that's just the way we had to do it.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Peoples? All right, thank you.
What the rotator reference stuff.
No.
All right, miscellaneous business council. We do need to make an appointment to the redevelopment commission. So with that said, I will take nominations for people for appointment to the redevelopment commission. Anybody want to nominate somebody?
I'll nominate Ms. Gibson.
Okay, we have Ms. Gibson.
Second.
I'll nominate David Hopper.
And we have Mr. Hopper. Any other nominations? All right, seeing none, we'll close the nominations, and we'll do this as we did last time. We'll do the roll call. When your name is called, simply give the name of the person you're voting for, either Ms. Gibson or Mr. Hopper. So roll call.
Gibson.
Gibson.
Hill.
Gibson.
Hopper.
Hopper.
Lexi.
Hopper.
Armstrong,
Hopper.
Bates,
Hopper.
Campbell,
Gibson.
Dine,
Gibson.
and Foster.
Gibson.
Ms. Gibson has 5 votes, Mr. Hopper 4. So Ms. Gibson, you are appointed to the RDC for the remainder of this year. And our next meeting is a week from tomorrow at 4:30. So,
I think I know where to find it.
yeah,
Thank you.
you've been to a few of them, so. All right. All right, this is a second opportunity for members of the audience to address the council. So if you were here and would like to address the council, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And I failed to mention this the first time, but it is stated in the agenda. There's a 5-minute time limit. So if you would like to address the council, now is your opportunity.
Thank you. To follow up what I talked about earlier, I'd like to reference a news story that was published on March 2nd, 2016 by television station Fox 59, and it seems to be the closest to the issue that I'm having currently. This article indicates that one of our citizens, Mr. Tate, hung a trailer from his front yard to make a point about the ordinance of parking cars, trailers, motorhomes on grass. And I just wanted to cover a few quick things about that. One of your councilmen at the time, a gentleman by the name of Chuck Landon, indicated in this report that he understood Mr. Tate's frustration by saying, we have grass regulations on the books already. He also went on to say that these people have taken care of their yards, they do a good job, and we're asking them to invest a lot of money for no real point at all. I did find this article, but I did not find any reference to any resolution this may have had, because it was indicated in this report that the council was meeting that evening to take up this very subject.
We did, that was a situation that came up a few years ago, and the council had chosen not to change the ordinance at that time.
Okay. Is there anything that I, as a citizen of Greenwood, can do to make a petition to change the wording in that ordinance to do so?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I caught your name was Doug, and I caught
Doug Clark.
Clark. Thank you, Mr. Clark. The tough question always up here is where do you draw the line? Like I said earlier on another ordinance. There are people in Greenwood who would be adamantly opposed to you parking on the grass.
I understand.
You know, we try to make these rules that are reasonable, but.
Well, I will say that I took a travel around the city today. And I found many instances of so-called violations of this ordinance. And none of those, to my knowledge, have been reported.
And that falls in the category of, do the police enforce people who speed by 1 mile per hour over the speed limit?
I understand that.
I hope not.
But yet,
where do they draw the line?
According to the gentleman at the zoning commission, a person, even anonymously, can make a complaint against anyone.
That's good. If your neighbor's a drug dealer and they call the police, and you call the police on them, do you want the police to tell them who turned it in?
No, sir.
Well, that keeps the peace. People should be able to make anonymous complaints, because sometimes, who knows what the outcome might be. I'd rather have people being able to make anonymous complaints.
I do not dispute that. All I'm asking the council is that they make a provision for people like myself to be able to keep an extra vehicle, which I need, in a place where it's not exposed to crime and not exposed to the traffic pattern on a residential street.
Mr. Clark, what you're doing right now, you've addressed all 9 of us on the council. We've heard your request and understand the situation, and any of the council members can make a request of the legal department to draft an ordinance if they so choose, to make an amendment, and then it would go through the normal process. But that would be up to each individual council member to decide if they want to do that or not. So,
Mr. Campbell, I know you're trying to maybe limit discussion, but if I might address
Sure.
a couple of things with Mr. Clark. First of all, you may find some trailers and cars and boats that are parked on gravel, but if they've been doing that, if they put that space in, so to speak, years ago, they're grandfathered on that, so they can do that. One of the reasons that we've required it being a hard surface is so, just as you said, you saw some where there's more grass than maybe what there is stone or pavers. If there's no hard surface there, people that want to pull off the side of their drive and just park there, they wind up getting ruts, and the neighbors think that that's unsightly. So
That's me as a homeowner's personal responsibility to make sure that my property is kept up and taken care of in a manner which would be beneficial to the entire neighborhood.
And you ask about the surface, and I believe that that states that it needs to match whatever your driveway is. So if your driveway is asphalt.
Again, I'm sorry, that's another thing in his letter that was not stated as a remedy. I was not aware of the fact that if my driveway is concrete, then I have to make my extra parking space concrete.
I think you could request a copy of that information, if you don't have it, the internet, to be able to get online and get a copy of that from the city website. I think you can request a specific copy of that.
In my specific case, it would be very difficult and expensive to put that driveway in because my water, my gas, and my electrical line all run right in the area that pavement would have to be laid.
Well, I'm sorry that it's creating a hardship for you, but as Mr. Lexi said, it's trying to find that middle of the road, and not everyone keeps their yard mowed, and not everyone is concerned about the
Then I would
appearance.
reference back to this story, which says that you as a council already have ordinances on the books concerning yard maintenance and upkeep.
But the parking is a different thing. That, as Mr. Campbell said, any of us have the option of asking for that to be considered, but when we've discussed it before, no one's felt moved to do that.
Okay, may I ask this then? Is this loose stone, gravel, an acceptable?
It needs to, I think you need to get a copy of that, and you will see that it says that it must match the surface, I believe.
This could be a pervious.
But also, I think it's supposed to match.
So I have no remedy in my particular residence.
I'm not sure, I'd have to see it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the audience wishing to address the council at this time? Seeing none, other miscellaneous business, Corporation Council.
I have none.
Controller? Mayor's office? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
Mike, I'm
Yes.
not opposed to anyone else getting a raise.
Okay.